Welcome back to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Nick Kroger, and as promised, we have Ayub Fleming. He's a real estate business professional, author, personal development, everything. You answered everything I asked you in that first segment, so he knows his stuff. And I kind of wanted to transition.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about the housing market in Central Florida, but the economy, which is affected, as we said, by the housing market, the impact specifically on the baby boomers, the seniors. How do the baby boomers affect the downturn in the economy, and how does the economy then turn around and affect the baby boomers? Is it kind of a vicious circle?
It is actually both. Just to kind of frame the issue, the baby boomers is the largest part of our population right now.
Right.
They typically look from 1947 to 64 to define the post-World War II class of people, the baby boomers. They were the people who hold the most assets, and right now probably hold the most money in the economy right now. Just to kind of frame things, they make up about 80% of all leisure travel.
Oh, okay.
And in a lot of areas, they make up 50% of a lot of the consumer spending. So they're going to have a tremendous effect. Now, they started retiring in 2011. So if you've got the most massive part of your economy starting to retire, people typically spend less money.
Right.
So going forward, you're going to have less money spent, which is going to cause an automatic contraction in the market because we're a consumer spending-based economy. So when the consumer index is down and people spend less, we see it in retail and other areas that it has a very direct effect on the economy. So the baby boomers, the second thing that's going to happen as they retire is they're living longer, and they're going to put a lot more pressure on Medicare,
right,
with Social Security, and they're going to put a lot more pressure on the state Medicaid programs to meet some of the needs, the ones who don't have the assets to retire. So it works both ways. We're not going to have possibly the finances to take care of the baby boomers as they retire. And with them spending less money going into retirement, it's going to be a natural contraction on the economy as a whole.
Well, let me talk to you about their retirement then. You know, how does it affect their retirement planning? I mean, is this a generation and a demographic that has done well foreseeing, you know, their future and keeping money aside, or are they walking into now a new world, a new economy, you know, and situation that makes whatever planning they did not enough?
It's both. With the baby boomers, they see a transfer of wealth from their parents to them that we've never seen before, some of which will have on the higher end an average of about $3 million either in assets and cash transferred to them, but on the lower end, the average is only going to be about $64,000. It was a time that the expectant age was about 65, maybe 70 years old. With females now, the average expectant age is about 82, is 75 for males, so people are living longer. As they do that, if they don't have long-term health care insurance and other things in place, they're going to be a burden on the taxpayers in order to meet their needs. So the ones who have done well, they'll be fine, but the ones who haven't, they're going to have housing issues with aging in place, they're going to have insurance issues, they're going to have health care issues, and all those are going to have to be addressed. So yes, the ones who've done well, big transfer of wealth to them. But the interesting statistic is about 50% of the baby boomers say that they're not going to transfer their wealth to their children. They're going to give it to nonprofits.
Wow, wow.
So they see Generation Y as kind of the whiny kids.
Right.
And they don't plan on transferring that wealth to the next generation.
Wow.
So that should be interesting.
That should be interesting. You know, I know that many baby boomers are finding it difficult to retire.
Yes.
What are some of the reasons? I mean, I know the first response would be, you know, it's a different economy. It's a different setup.
It's a different economy.
Are there any other factors that have gone into why, you know, it's harder for them to retire as they typically might have?
Well, you know, my parents' generation, we had more of a manufacturing base in this country than we do now. And so there was a lot of jobs that they could work at and retire on those jobs and get life pensions. A lot less companies now are offering pensions, and now we have a problem even with the public pensions, where we have now starting to see cities go into bankruptcy, and for the first time, the post office may default on their pension payment in August. We've never seen that before. So our Congress have got to go back and resolve some of these problems and revamp even the postal. So as they retire, the public pensions may not be there. And you think about working all your life in a job
Right,
and not having that security.
Right.
But it's the same thing with Social Security and Medicare, which both programs equal almost 70% of our revenue, of our expenditures, our budget. And we're not quite sure how we're going to fund this moving forward. So it's going to be an interesting thing to resolve, because you still have those baby boomers, as they live longer, are going to be that burden on society.
Wow. I know that the Orlando Sentinel, in the Metro Orlando area alone, they stated that the number of people 100 or older jumped 43% between 2000 and last fall.
Yes.
To 318 people in a 4-county area. So in light of this, how early should someone start preparing for retirement? I mean, people are living longer.
I tell people to start planning probably in their 30s. And part of that is because of, if you look at investments right now, if you look at long-term T-bills, municipal bond funds, the interest rate they're paid on those is pretty dismal.
Right.
So you're not getting the return. If you look at compounding interest, you don't have the interest in the time that you would have in a traditional market. So some of the long-term investments like that, if we have an inflationary period or increase, those investments won't be worth much, because inflation will outpace the rate that they're being returned on their long-term investments. So all those are factors going into retirement for baby boomers and people in their 30s and 40s to say, how do I get that return on my investments? Where do I find public pensions or 401ks? We really need to look at Roth IRAs, individual retirement accounts, and things that long-term, maybe even the stock market in emerging markets, may be able to pay us the dividends that we need in order to address that we're living longer and that our needs are going to be greater, health needs and things like that, because we are living longer. Even a place to live, an age in place, is going to be much harder if you live 10, 15, 20 years longer than what you expected. So see the increase of the people who live over 100 let you know that medical care has gotten a lot better, medicines have improved, people embrace holistic medicine, but with the life expectancy increasing, so do the expenses.
Right. And I imagine it's hard to get a 30-year-old to think about retirement. I mean, in general, it's a whole re-education process.
It is.
Because of the new circumstances. I mean, what I hear you saying, again, I'm just the average Joe listening, is that time is a factor and a benefit when you're planning for your retirement, because the yield and the return isn't as quick as fast.
That is
so
true.
Starting earlier, what you have on your side is time to get the results.
Yes. Basically, we have it's called a rule of 72. You take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate that you're getting paid. That tells you the number of years that it's going to compound. The average used to be about 10% that you could expect in some of your investments, especially if you had stocks involved in your portfolio. So, you know, if you look at 72 divided by 10, that's 7.2 years that your money was going to double. If you're looking about 1.5 to 2%, then you can see that's 36 years where your money is going to double.
Right.
That is significant, very significant. So you have to figure out a way how you're going to overcome that. And people now have to be much more productive in their middle and older years. It used to be, again, that you could look for a lot of jobs and retire on those jobs and look forward to public pensions and things like that. It's very difficult now. In my generation, we probably change jobs like we change houses every 5 to 7 years. It's not one of those situations where you think that you're going to walk into this company and I'm going to be here till retirement. We are really the first generation that ourselves are entrepreneurs, and we're starting to brand ourselves versus looking to a company to resolve our issues and provide for us.
Now, I know another option, or a lot of, that we hear this phrase thrown around a lot, is estate planning.
Yes.
What is estate planning, and what are the benefits of that?
Estate planning looks at everything. They look at your home, they look at your assets, they look at how can we mitigate your risk long term. Some risk is going to be necessary, because if you want those higher yields, you're going to have to take more risk in your portfolio. Also, they look at the taxes. How can we mitigate some of your tax liability as you get older, like individual retirement accounts and other investments, so that as you get older and you want to draw some of those monies or need to, that you don't take a big hit in your taxes. Now, tax reform hasn't come. And so we don't know if the tax extension, George Bush tax extension, is going to happen. But we need to have some tax reform in order for real growth to come back into the economy. People need to know where they stand, especially thinking about retirement, and so that's a big issue. So estate planning encompasses everything. And so an estate planner will look at it and say, well, you know, how is it that you want to live when you go into retirement? And then look at your assets and try to figure out, well, what do we need to invest in order to make that happen? That may include reverse mortgages on your existing house. It may include a myriad of things. But it kind of addresses, you know, the growth that you need, what type of payments that you're going to need on a monthly basis to cover your expenses, and it also looks at tax mitigation and risk mitigation as well.
Well, I know that insurance is a big thing right now, you know, trying to revamp that whole industry.
Yes.
But what role does insurance itself play in retirement planning?
One of the things that you have to look at, first of all, is your life insurance. Do I go with like a whole life policy or term life? Whole life meaning from the time you buy the policy, it covers you for your whole life that you have the policy. Term means there's an individual, whether it be 10, 15, 20, or 30-year policy in place. The difference is whole life has what's called cash value.
Right.
Over the long term, you know, up front, it's heavily with fees and expenses, but over time, it starts to build cash value. Term doesn't have any cash value to it. You only pay for the insurance. So it's much cheaper to get into, but on the back end, there's no cash value to it. People say buy term and invest a difference, and I think for the most part that works. However, in your investments, you have to earn, they estimate, about 4.2 to 4.5% if you look at the 20-year track of both in order to, you know, achieve the same cash value that the whole life policy. That's the first thing. The second one is long-term care or long-term disability. If you think about health care, they're saying by 2030, over 50% will need some type of long-term disability or long-term care insurance because medical expenses are so high when you're talking about catastrophic injuries or disease, cancer, things like that. It can be devastating, and statistically, most people file bankruptcy because of medical expenses. So putting the proper insurance in place to take care of your life insurance and to take care of your health care needs is critical to retirement.
Tell me, if you were going to speak to the viewers today and the baby boomers, and as we're approaching retirement, and what are the top 3 advice items that you would give to them?
Number one, because I think it's important to have a place to live, I would say do some type of housing planning. About 92% of the people really want to age in place at home. About 12% end up going to assisted living. Nobody really wants to go to nursing homes, particularly if they can avoid it. A lot of people go into nursing homes to heal, and then they go right back into assisted living or back home. The average person only spends 2.5 years in nursing homes. So I would say come up with a transitional housing plan. If you're going to age in place, you got to have the proper insurance and the proper assets in order to do that. You're going to have the right care, be able to afford to come into the home, and everything from prescribed medicines and everything else that you need. Now, probably the second thing I would do is estate planning other than your housing plan. You have to really look at what your risk is going to be, what your risk tolerance is, and then what lifestyle do you need to be able to achieve. If you're living longer, how much more money are you going to need? A lot of estate planners now and financial planners are planning about 20 years past traditionally where they would have planned before because people are living longer. And then the last thing I probably would tell people is be productive, whether it be starting your own business or look at a business more as not a temporary solution as you get older, but something you would really enjoy, something you could really put your talent and your skills into, and even maybe look at acquiring new skills that are marketable and where we're going. Seniors need to learn, as well as baby boomers, need to learn technology and where we are today, and then take their experience and use technology to make those skills marketable. Well,
Ayub Fleming, I think you're one of the most intelligent people I met, yet I understood everything you said. So that's a great combination. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Viewers, I hope that you feel the same way. It was a lot of information, some of it technical, but it makes sense. And so this is kind of our gift to you, a wake-up call. Take a look at some of these things that Ayub has talked about today, and you can be more productive and effective as you go into that next stage of life. So remember, take all the information you've got today, and we can all be productive, we can plan ahead, and we can spread a little bit of joy in our town. We'll see you again real soon.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.